Okay, it's what is today? Wednesday,
June 8th,
2016. We're here in Cascade High School with Al Marshall, and we just wanted to visit a little bit today, Al, and sort of review some of the things, milestones in your career and experiences. How about going back to college days and pick up your situation and graduating from college and go from there?
Yeah, I graduated from Loras College in 1968, and I was hired out at Acquin High School. It was interesting, the first, not a formal interview, but the first meeting I had with the principal was the baseball coach was also in education. And Acquin had an opening. He just happened to be in town, so he stopped over. And it had rained that day, so we were practicing indoors. So I was at the old field house on the lower campus, running upstairs. I was dressed in a baseball cap, cut-off shirt, shorts, socks, and tennis shoes, and that was it. And he came in, he talked to me, whatever, and we made contact. And I came out for a formal interview, and I accepted the job. And one of the things they said in education at that time, you may remember, they said, well, stay 2 years in your first job and then you can go ahead and move. So that was kind of the plan in the back of my mind, and 47 years later I'm still here, and I'm glad I did stay here.
What was your early assignments for teaching and coaching?
Yeah, I actually was mainly phys ed when I first started, and I also had a social studies background, so I was teaching like one class of social studies, and that's what I did mainly with Acquin. And then when Acquin closed and we became public, that's when I switched over to teach full-time social studies, and might have one class of PE on an odd year or something like that. My main assignment teaching-wise over the years in social studies were primarily government, sociology, and world history. Occasionally I'd have U.S. history as well, but government, sociology, and world history were the main ones.
Okay. And, then how about your early coaching assignments?
Well, I coached varsity boys basketball when I started out at Acquin, and I was assistant track coach and assistant cross-country coach to Bob Davidshofer, and Bob was my assistant in basketball, so we spent a lot of time together during the course of the year. And then a few years, I think it was the last 4 years of Acquin, I got rid of the track coaching and was head baseball coach at the time as well.
Okay. Those were when you first came to Acquin, that was still the Eastern Iowa Conference. How long did the conference continue after you got there?
Well, I was at Acquin, I think, 7 years, and it was all 7 years, and we played in the Eastern Iowa Conference the first year of the public school. And then I think after that, we moved into the Big Bend, I think. It might have been 2 years public school, but I think it was just one.
Okay.
I think. That's my best recollection.
Okay. That was, so those were the early 70s. And,
yes.
So you were at Acquin 7 years.
76 is when Acquin closed.
Okay. That must have been interesting, I guess, or probably some concern when there was talk of Acquin closing and what was going to happen. How do you recall those years?
Yeah, it was. Actually, 2 years before Acquin actually closed, there were great rumors about it was going to close and that sort of thing. And then there was a anonymous benefactor came in, and Acquin got 2 more years that way. But yeah, when Acquin closed, people were concerned about jobs, and suddenly you had your resume polished and sent out and that sort of thing again because you're looking for a job. But I was real thankful that I was able to get hired by Western Dubuque and stay in Cascade because I'd grown to really like the community, and it was a good school system, good families in the area, and good support, so made it a good place to coach.
Did you have some other opportunities to go elsewhere at that time? Or?
Yes, I did, but I was just hoping that this would come through.
Okay, so you really wanted to continue the tie to Cascade.
Yes.
Okay. So let's maybe a little bit about
your coaching experiences during that time in the 70s, transition to the Big Bend, and how did that affect your situation with Cascade as far as the size of schools and the competition, that sort of thing?
Let me back up just a minute before we go on to the Eastern Iowa Conference, before we leave that. I really enjoyed that conference. There was great camaraderie among the coaches. You were coaching in the league, Wayne Chanley, Jim McCarthy, those type people. I think back, I tell this story frequently. The first year I coached, we have a meeting in the fall, and I'd known you three guys from just around Dubuque. And I'd hoped to sit with you at the evening meal. And somehow it didn't work out, and I wound up sitting with Bill Murphy and Hap Vivaberg. And that was a treat for a rookie, for a guy right out of college listening to those two guys. It was hilarious. And no offense, but every year after that, I tried to sit with those guys whenever we were going to eat. So it was great fun. It was a great league. I thought there was great camaraderie in the league. I mean, we tried to beat each other, and then afterwards you were still very friendly. But transitioning into the Big Bend, then yes, we went from playing those schools into the Big Bend. It was a more difficult conference. There were two versions of the Big Bend. The first one had us, Western Dubuque, Northeast, Bellevue, Comanche, Pleasant Valley, DeWitt Central, and Clinton St. Mary's, or whatever they were going by at a particular time. It was a very good conference, and it sharpened your coaching skills. You had to be on your toes. You had to get something done on a nightly basis, and you knew how to feel about a win. If you won a game, you felt real good about it. So yeah.
You know, you mentioned Hap and Bill, and I grew up around Olwine, and so I was familiar a little bit with those guys other than coaching. And I remember one Christmas vacation, I was home, and a good friend of mine is a sports editor at the Olwine Daily Register. Back at that time, they had what they called the Corn Bowl tournament. It was with Northern Iowa, State College of Iowa at that time, Wartburg, and then they invited two other teams. And he called me and he said, "Let's go to the games up at Waverly." So I said, "Okay." And well, they picked me up, and here was Murphy was in the car, and so we go over there and walk in the door, and there's a table to pay, and so anyway, Murphy's behind me, and I go in and I pay, and he comes up, he pulls out his billfold, and he opens it up, and he's got a card there, and he puts his hand over and he says, "Knights." Walks in with his Knights of Columbus card. And so, anyway, then the years go by, and now I'm at Farley, and our first spring game, baseball game, was with St. John's. So we go over to Independence and get to the field, and it's just still bare, and there's nothing there. And all of a sudden, there Murphy shows up. He throws open his trunk and throws out 3 base bags and a rake, and he's got some lime. And anyway, we have our first game, so that was always a great experience to be around Bill.
It was. It truly was.
How about as far as you were into coaching basketball, and obviously it was a strong passion for you to be in that field. What were the things you did as far as strengthening your background and knowledge during that time?
Yeah. Went to a lot of clinics whenever I could. Clinics probably weren't quite as accessible as they are now, but certainly when the Iowa Coaches Association started it, that sort of thing. There were a lot of magazines you could read, Scholastic Coach. It was all magazines. It wasn't the DVDs that you could order online now and that sort of thing. And one of the other great broadening experiences was John Davison's coach at a basketball camp at the University of Dubuque. And it attracted a lot of area coaches, really outstanding coaches. And there was always back and forth about basketball and that sort of thing, and one coach would present to the campers, and there's a lot of information given there. And also, John, for his own benefit as well as for the camp, will usually bring in one major college coach for a day. And you could listen to him and have lunch with him and that sort of thing, ask all kinds of questions. So that was as useful as anything else. And plus, then, John Davison has always been a great resource in my coaching career. If I had one person I considered to be a mentor, it would be John Davison.
Yeah, John's an outstanding individual, no question. Back in that time, as I am remembering in my own experiences, it was pretty much seasonal sports: basketball, baseball, track, football, whatever. As time went on, began to demand more skills development for kids. How did that work for you as far as organizing the young kids to get them taught properly?
Well, in the early days, we'd had a Saturday morning session all the time. We'd have Saturday morning in the gym, and whatever age we would have, they would come in and we'd do math fundamentals with them and try to get some things developed that way. We also started, we were one of the early ones, we started a league down at the Memorial Hall. Before Christmas, it would be for 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, and then after Christmas, the 7th, 8th graders would have their school season. So then we had a 5th and 6th division and a 3rd and 4th division. That's where they started. And the 3rd graders, I thought it was about as young as you should start with them. I know some people are doing it earlier now, but I thought 3rd was about the level. And the improvement when you see them in 3rd grade and come back the next year when they're in 4th grade, it was remarkable. And you got them going in the right path and the right direction. But the other thing I would say also, over the years, I think a lot of coaches might be surprised at how much time we devote to just basic fundamentals in practice all the way through, even up until this last season. We do a lot of fundamental work, skill work every day in practice.
Okay. Talk about some of your players back in the 70s and early 80s that were memorable competitors for you.
Yeah, well, the first one to jump out is Brian McDermott. Was in the early 70s, mid 70s, somewhere in there. He was the first great player I had, and to this day remains the best perimeter player I ever coached at Cascade. Came up to the team when he was a sophomore, and then because he played point guard when he was a sophomore, he was about 5'10" or 5'11", or maybe even 5'8" when he was a sophomore, I guess. And he was about 6'2" by the time he was a senior. And the junior and senior had moved to the wing. Outstanding slasher. There wasn't much film then, so it was. You'd try to sell him to a college, and they thought, okay, a small college guard, all he can do is a standstill shooter, and that was probably his weakest area. He was a great penetrator, great passer. So he went to Grandview, which was a junior college at the time. First year they finished 5th in the nation. The next year they only lost 3 games all year, but they were all to Southeast Community College, coached by Charlie Spoonhour. And Charlie loved him. And then he went to the University of South Dakota, and he was all-conference up there, and set an NCAA record for assists in 2 consecutive games. I think it's since been broken, but at that point. And he's currently coaching at Southern Oregon University. And there were a lot of other. I should say at this point, I've been blessed by having a number of great players over the years. But the backbone of the program has always been the people who were the real hard-working, coachable, glue-type players, and we had a lot of them during that time frame. And the next really outstanding player I had in the early 80s was Greg McDermott came along, and he was about 6'8", and outstanding player for us. I might mention that both those players have now been inducted into the Hall of Fame, very deservingly so. And then Greg went from here, and he finished his career at Northern Iowa, 1,000-point scorer up there, all-conference player as well. And then he went on to his coaching career and is currently the head coach at Creighton University. Okay. Well, I think I skipped over Kevin Dolphin. Kevin was back there. He was a pretty outstanding player, too. He went to Ellsworth Junior College. He was kind of a tweener type guy. He was 6'4", 6'5", somewhere in there. Played very hard. Played at Mount Mary, I think, in South Dakota, then later on. And those were the early ones that were the outstanding players at that time frame.
Okay. So you're in the 80s. Where were we at conference-wise then?
That was a good question. we were in the old Big Ben, and then that kind of dissolved because Bellevue and Northeast and those two in particular, I think, kind of thought they were not big enough. And we were either 1 or 2 years as an independent, which is really a difficult thing in basketball. Everybody has their conference games on Tuesday and Friday, so you're playing just a slug of Saturday games and that sort of thing. And then we got into the second version of the Big Ben. And that's when the WAMAC kind of broke up, the old WAMAC. So some of those schools came in, and now you had Cascade, Beckman, WD, Monticello, Anamosa, Maquoketa, Comanche, and DeWitt. And that was an outstanding conference. That was a really, really difficult conference. And it's probably during that time that I started. Up until this time, I'd probably been strictly a man-to-man coach. And that new conference, I started to get more into zones. Before, whenever I did a zone, it was awful because I didn't know how to teach it. I didn't believe in it, anything. And I needed something with WD so big and Maquoketa and DeWitt big and Hall of Fame coaches at those places that I could match up like for 3 players, maybe 4 players, but certainly not the 5th player on the floor and certainly not on the bench. So I needed something that would allow me to keep my better players on the floor for longer periods of time. And I started dabbling with the zone and becoming more proficient at it and that sort of thing. But that was the initiative to move towards the zone was that conference, yes.
Okay. So that's okay. Then what was your first team that made it to state?
First team made state was 1993.
Okay.
And we defeated Maquoketa Valley in the sub-state by 2. Maquoketa Valley had finished 3rd in the state the year before and returned all 5 starters. So that was a great victory for us, and it was kind of getting over the hump. And that was I think it opened up the possibilities, and for not just for us, but I think that was the real opening for a lot of the success that Cascade has had over the last 20 years.
Okay. What do you recall as far as that for first year? The challenges of getting a team physically down to Des Moines and ready to play the games. How did that work for you?
Yeah, the first obstacle is winning, getting there, getting all the tournament games, because in our area they're always difficult games. There's certain areas of the state where if you see a team that's at the state tournament a lot of times you look at it, they only have about one game.
Yeah, they're from Southwest.
One real competitive game to get there. So that's the first part. Then the second part, once you've done it the first time, is really to deal with the emotion, the hoopla. The whole community is so excited. The kids are so excited. Nobody in town can do enough for you. Everybody's patting you in the back and that sort of thing. And it becomes a real challenge to get them to focus on the game and make sure that this is a work experience. You want it to have an enjoyable experience. They've accomplished something. That's good. But also you'd like to not go down there and lay an egg. And we lost the first game down there, first round, and I thought
I saw that game, but who did you play?
Algona Garrigan.
Okay.
Yeah, and we played pretty well. It was just one of those games where you lost the game. We didn't play quite well enough, but it was a learning experience. I think it helped us further down the road at times.
Okay, so that was 93. Then when did you go back again?
Next time was 98, and 98 was a very good team. That was talent-wise one of the better teams we had here, and we first round we beat Bondurant Farrar, and they were the defending state champions. They had 3 Division II scholarship players on their team, 2 kids 6'8", and their point guard was 6'2". He was a scholarship player. Actually, he was a scholarship player for Greg McDermott when he was at Wayne State at that point. And we beat them 36-34 and held them scoreless the last 9.5 minutes of the game in order to win.
Okay, wow.
Yeah.
And that was attributable to the zone?
Yeah, actually, part of the zone. They were so big, and they had those 3 kids. The other 2 kids were shaky shooters, so we were playing little games with them and that sort of stuff. But yeah, it was the zone.
Okay. So then, then after that game, what happened next?
We lost to Pella Christian in the semis. We lost by 3. We missed a 3 at the buzzer, and then we lost the consolation game to Unity Christian of Orange City.
I thinking back over the years, as far as the state tournament with the guys, anytime you saw a team out of Northwest Iowa, you knew they were going to be like 6'5" to 6'8" Dutchmen coming from.
Yeah. Yes.
It just.
Yeah.
It was inevitable.
One of the years we were down there, we saw Western Christian play in the first round, and they beat somebody badly, and they had on their 11 through 15, they had a 6'10" kid who was coordinated, who wasn't bad at all. And it's like, okay, just send him to our way. We'll take him.
What was the last time that, you guys always played West Dubuque, but when did that terminate as far as competition?
The last time it was an actual game was 2011. 2011, yep.
Okay. I'm thinking back to when I retired, then that was the time that Craig Callahan, I think, was your big guy.
Yeah, Callahan was junior in 98 and 99. We went back-to-back state tournament teams. He was an outstanding player, one of the best big people. Him and Craig Callahan, Devin now would fit, Devin Green, this year's player, would fit in that category. But Craig went on and played at North Carolina Wilmington. They were in the NCAA 3 of his 4 years there, and the NIT the other year that he was there. He was also an all-conference player, and he has since been a professional in Europe ever since. So he would have graduated from college in, what would that have been, 2003. So since that time, he's been a pro in Europe.
I remember him so well. It seems to me like, in my assessment, he was probably one of the greatest athletes to come out of this area physically. He was dominating.
Yeah. In '99, one of the remarkable ones was we beat Solon in the district championship that year. And there's an out of bounds play he got, and I have it on tape. It's like he just dunked right over David Gruber, who went on to play very well at Northern Iowa, and just posterized him.
Okay. Okay. Did your teaching assignments vary or change much, like from 2000 on, or?
Yeah, it would kind of depend upon. We're a small enough school in Cascade. It kind of depended upon the class and where there was a need and that sort of thing. But like I said, the 3 I taught primarily were world history, government, and sociology. And then sometimes I'd have to pick up some U.S. history as well. Or one of the others wouldn't have a large 2 sections. There'd be another section to fill out my teaching load or whatever. And back then we had 7-period days. It seemed like I often got 6 periods teaching and 1 off. So
yeah,
it's kind of the way it worked.
I remember those days. Okay. Well, all during this time, you were still in the same facility, gymnasium facility, and came the time that the construction for the new facilities happened. How many seasons did you get in the new gym?
2 seasons. Yeah.
Okay. That must have been like, wow.
Well, it was certainly different. It was like you couldn't almost believe it. It's the difference and what it looked like and that sort of thing. And we still practice in the old facility And but it is, even in the old facility you practice there, it's kind of like going home in some way. You're there so often that it's. I've never been one that mattered too much where I practiced, as long as you had a court and hoops and it was decent and that sort of thing. The Weber Center is a fine practice facility for us as well. We're fortunate in that now compared to what we had at one point. At one point, before the Weber Center, we had the old gym and the Memorial Hall, and that was it for boys and girls, 7 through 12, which most schools were only 9 through 12 for those gyms, but we were 7 through 12. And wrestling, yeah.
On top of that. Do you recall some of the crazy humorous stuff that happened during the time that you were coaching to the kids, or with you going to games or coming from games? Or
Yeah. Well, one of the ones that started out, they asked me about the very first game I coached, and it was at Independent St. John's. And at that time, they had a scoreboard where the minute was here and the second sweep around the clock. Remember that? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm red-green colorblind. It has some confusion colors. So I said to Bob Davis over the bench, "You might have to help me out. I'm not sure I can always see how many minutes are left up there." So that's an interesting one. And yeah, there are a number of funny incidents with kids. Some of them should probably just remain remain silent. Yeah, we'll not even change the names to protect the innocent. We'll just let it go at that.
Yeah, well, you must have logged a few miles in the yellow school buses, right?
Yeah, I guess. When the new conference we're in, you certainly do. Well, the old Big Bend too, because you had all those ones that were south. You're going, or the early Big Bend. You had Pleasant Valley and Clinton and Northeast and DeWitt and Comanche, and all of them were long road trips. And Northeast might have been a little closer than some of those trips, but there was no easy way to get to Northeast.
No.
That's a tough trip, no matter how you slice it.
When you got there was no sportsmanship.
No, Northeast was always a tough place to play. As a matter of fact, one year in the Big Bend, DeWitt Central, coached by Neil Padgett, won the state title, and they lost 2 games that season at Maquoketa and at Northeast. And we joked with him it was easier to win a state title than to win at Maquoketa or Northeast.
I remember one year going to Northeast and playing a game, and we played them in football earlier, which they won. And as we left the parking lot, we could see the football field, and they had turned on the scoreboard. This is the wintertime, and they had the score of the game as they defeat us in football on.
I don't know who had control of that thing, but that same exact thing happened to us. They beat us one year to keep us out of the playoffs, and we went down there and beat them, and we walk out to the bus, and there's the scoreboard lit up with the scoreboard on, and then another year we came in, and one of our scholar athletes came in over there with not on our team, but they were coming in wearing the flak jackets and the army fatigues and all that sort of stuff. And I mean, the principal told me on the way out, "You're calling your principal when you get home. I don't care if he's in bed. You're getting him up and tell him what happened." So.
Oh yeah, it was. I mean, that was not a pleasant place to go. I remember that. What about your last? Talk about the last tournament just this past spring, as far as your memories of that.
Well, this whole year was really special. I announced that I was going to would be my final year, and I didn't want to distract from the kids, but I wanted to kind of out there so it wasn't kind of lingering in the background, people asking questions and all that sort of stuff. And I told the players the only thing that I said was it's my senior year as well as yours, so let's go out and have a good year. And it was kids were great. It was very enjoyable coaching them all season. I'm not saying there was ever any ups and downs. There was one time after Christmas we lost to Northeast badly at home, and then we beat Tipton on the road. We played pretty poorly, and we came back the next week with a renewed emphasis on defense, and it was not they were rugged practices, those, to get us back our mindset where we need to go. And then we played really well, and then we wound up the way our schedule wound up this year was a very difficult one. We finished with our last 6 regular season games all on the road, and all of them either difficult games or long road trips. I mean, they're like at Mid Prairie, at West Liberty, at Northeast, at Monticello, at Maquoketa. So they were all difficult games. I think it took a toll a little bit. And the last week of the season, we lost our last 2 regular season games at Northeast and at Monticello. And at Northeast we lost by 2. We could have won that game. At Monticello, they played really well. And Monticello was a team this year that I don't think some people around the state recognize how good they were. And we had to play them then in the district championship game 2 weeks after that game. And we spent that entire time preparing for them. And we had to junk the defense up a little bit because they had the 2 Modernauts that can shoot it from just across the timeline. And we beat them, and it was our 6th straight district championship. That's something I'm really proud of, maybe even more so than the state tournament runs, because it speaks to consistency.
It's like the state tournament.
Yeah, and it is getting there, but it speaks to consistency as well.
Yeah.
And then we beat our old rival Beckman in the sub-state, and we're down to the state tournament. It was a very difficult game, and Jim Squires from Bellevue Marquette is back in coaching now up in Beckman, so he and I have gone back a long time as well. It's one of those things when you look over there and the 2 coaches are standing there talking the entire time while teams are warming up. And then we played Osage in the first round. Throughout the term, we just got better and better and better. It kind of built on itself. And defensively, it's not often that you'll go to the state tournament and your defensive average for the year improves. But that's what happened this year. We beat Osage, got a great start. I think they hadn't been to the state tournament before. I think they were a little shaky starting out. We were left 35-12 at halftime and had played really well. And then the semifinal, we beat Pella Christian, held them to 35 or 37. I'm not sure what it was. And Coach Hummel, the baseball coach, and he's also works with the basketball program. He was on the '98 team that lost to Pella Christian in the state semis, and he was telling the team right there. He said, we owe them one. We're getting back for '98 season." So we defeated Pella Christian. They got into the championship game. The first one that we got to, I got a team to, and then we lost to Western Christian. They're the gold standard of 2A basketball. We held them to 42 points, 30 points below their average, but unfortunately they held us below 40 as well. So great season for us. Devin Green was one of the outstanding big men we've had come through here. Like a lot of the big players, they come up early and they play for a long time, and people ask you what they were like to coach and that sort of thing. And I often say, which year are you talking about? Because Devin's progress as a person and as a player were remarkable from his freshman year to his senior year, and work ethic and that sort of thing, just maturity level. And I think oftentimes, I use basketball to try to help people become better people. Right. For society and that sort of thing. It's also a selfish thing, because I really believe the better person they become, the better player they become. They're easier to coach, they're more mature, they understand things, and it's much easier that way as well. So
sure. Okay. So 47 years? Yeah, that's amazing. To make a run like that, and you obviously enjoyed most of it, I'm sure.
Most of it. Oh, yeah. I mean, everybody knows what coaching is. There's some criticism, and there's some people that are upset and that sort of thing when their son doesn't play. But by and large, it's been very good. I enjoyed it. I always enjoyed the practices right up until the end. I'll miss practice. I'll miss games. Certainly, I won't miss riding a bus to Wellman, Iowa, or West Liberty. But yeah, and it's been a good community, very supportive. One of the things I started talking before one time about the youth program, what's developed now is we'll have like 2 parents in every class taking kids around and playing, from 3rd, 4th grade on up, and they'll play 50 games in the winter and that sort of stuff. And
That's a huge change from past years.
Yeah, huge. It gets players walk through the door coming in, and they have a certain skill level, and that you can build on and refine. And some of their skills, some of the things that might have been taught, might not be exactly right, and that sort of stuff. But they've played, they've been competition, that sort of thing, and
they've made the repetitions.
I say that the youth program to high school in this day and age is the equivalent of recruiting in college. So your players coming through the door. The other huge difference is the AAU basketball, the emphasis of that, and that sort of thing. Now, we're in an area the size of school, which I'm very happy about. I think it's the correct model. Our kids play all sports. You go watch. You go watch our baseball team play today. You'll recognize a lot of those names. They're the same people that played basketball and football and that sort of thing. And I think that's a good thing for kids. But a number of them do play AAU, and I think for like Devin in this past his whole thing, it was very helpful for him.
Yeah.
I've had some other kids that it was very helpful for them as well. We've had some players where I didn't think it was very helpful. Their parents spent money, and I'm not sure they got a great deal out of it, and that sort of thing. So it's like a lot of things. As you get older in life, I think you look at there are very few things in life that are all good or all bad. So AAU is good for certain players and a certain in a certain place, but it's not necessarily for all players.
Yeah, and there's a lot more of it. It seems like now, as far as teams that are playing at that level.
Yeah, I think some of it comes from the kids, but I think a lot of it's driven by parents.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I know some of the parents and kids, the Haldemans, some of those kids from Dubuque, and just following them on Facebook or whatever. Like, boy, they're spending a lot of money and they're traveling all over the place too.
I had a brother tell the only way brothers can talk about each other. His brother lived over in Cedar Rapids, and his son was playing all kinds of travel teams at early age, both baseball and basketball. And he said he may get a scholarship when he's done with this, but his dad will have already paid for it.
I like that one. That's pretty darn close.
The best humor has a ring of truth to it.
How about some of the officials that you remember that? What were they memorable, or what happened that caused you to remember?
Well, you remember the games you lost in the tournament to end your season. Those are the ones you remember a lot. But certainly back in this area, I remember Gene Glab and Bernie O'Connor starting out back in the day. They were well-known officials, and Pat Sullivan and Maury Clucker. Maury Clucker I loved as a referee. The state people wouldn't love him. His hand mechanics and that stuff were awful. Okay, but I thought he always got the call right. Whether it was a foul or travel, whatever he'd be. No, you can't do that. And then you get the call, but you get the call right, and he'd go on from there. I talked to Bill Fleming last spring, and one of the referees I was talking to him about was Jerry Tan.
I had Jerry up at the...
Who I told Bill it was like he was refereeing for the Washington Generals against the Harlem Globies, and you came in there and Jerry Tan was a designated official, and Bill claimed all innocence on it, but I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure we'd go there.
When I had Jerry for a football game, you knew it was going to be over very fast. That hand was
keep the clock running. Yeah.
Going. Oh man, he was nice guy. He was something else.
Yeah. We have a group now. There's a officiating crew out of Clinton that is led by Jeff Horst, and he's a very good official. And they, like a lot of officials lately, the way we play, they like to referee our games because one of the goals, we had two goals, among others, but some of the goals we had were to lead the conference in fewest turnovers and fewest fouls committed. Okay, so referees, if referees, you don't have to blow this whistle out and that sort of thing. But they said to us, he said, it is difficult to referee you on the road because your team doesn't foul. And when you look up at the board and there's 7 fouls on the other team and 1 on you, that's the first thing they start yelling at. And then we're saying they're not fouling, they're not doing anything here. So really, if whenever we saw a horse crew come through the doors on a road game, we were delighted. We were very happy.
Yeah.
And I think a couple other officials now that from over in Wisconsin, we get them occasionally in Iowa. Ken Welter and Jeff Hartle. I thought they were outstanding. I know they've done the Wisconsin State Tournament.
Bob Hildebrand.
Yeah,
Bob was a great official. And Rich Sampson was his partner.
Yeah, Hildebrand and Sampson.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, there are a number of them. If you start mentioning them, they certainly ring a bell. They don't pop to mind right away, but or maybe I try to forget referees.
Oh my. Yeah. Anyway, anything else you want to preserve for posterity, or?
I don't know. We skipped over kind of that. We skipped over the 2001 team, I think, because we had a run there. We had a run here. We went 3 state tournaments in a row, 14, 15, and 16. We also had a run there, 98, 99, and 01. We're 3 out of 4, and the 01 team was led by Nate Schmidt, who's also one of the 6'7", 6'8" players I had. Outstanding big man. He played at Wartburg then, was Player of the Year in the Iowa Conference one year, and he's currently a police officer in Dubuque. He actually had the crowd control for both of our district final and sub-state finalists this year. I asked him if he wanted to suit up. He said he was ready.
Yeah. Oh well. 01, that was our state tournament team.
Yes.
I still think, as far as big physical, I don't ever remember a team like that.
Yes.
Anywhere. Those guys, right down to the 7th, 8th guy. I mean, we won state championship game because of Jake Rudin comes off the bench and just dominates.
Yes.
And that how fickle basketball is. We played West Delaware at the Cellular Center.
Yes.
Did you see that game?
No, but I heard it.
So it's the 4th quarter, and we're down 8 points in the middle, and I get up, and the principal and we decide to go over to the end where our kids are, because if we lose, this is going to be, I'm going to be disappointed. So we start walking. All of a sudden, we make a couple baskets. Now I'm at the other end, and so now it's tied. And West Delaware has the ball, and Dennis has got the timeout, and they've run this play before, out of bounds in the screen. The guy throws a lob pass.
Yeah, I know the play.
And John Steffen was waiting for it, and he intercepted it. So now we got the ball. We're still in the backcourt. I don't know, 4 seconds, whatever. Inbounds to Daly to the half, and he lets her fly. And look, it was long, but it was off the glass and swish, and
that's it. Yeah.
Unbelievable. Yeah. Amazing stuff. Anything else?
I don't think so. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed my time, and it was, like I said, it was a lot of fun. It was a good career to look back on, and yeah.
Okay.